First of all, introducing our challenger.
Out of the blue corner.
He's going to step in and he does. It's all over.
Let's bring on the boom.
This is Eternal MMA.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of the Eternal Insiders Podcast, now powered by Ladbrokes, the official partner for Eternal MMA in 2025. Ladbrokes will have official markets on all cards starting from Eternal 94 and going forward. And with that, let us welcome in today's guest. He was successful in the main event for Eternal 92. That card just gone in Sydney with the UFC in town for 312. I'm talking, of course, about David the Smiling Assassin Martinez, now officially not one, not two, but a three-time Eternal MMA champion. Dave, thanks for being here on the show again, brother. How does it feel to hear that, man? Three-time Eternal MMA champion across two weight divisions, no less. That's got to feel good. Tell me about how you're feeling, man, right now.
Bro, yeah, that's pretty fantastic. But going back to the whole Ladbrokes sponsoring Eternal and that, I was keen to jump on that on the last card, but then they weren't available. First card's going to be Perth. And damn it. I was going to put all my money on Blair, man.
Oh, you ready to blow the life savings, mate? That would have been a safe bet on Blair.
Yeah, man. We've been rich. We've been rich, man. The stocks were up, and just wasn't meant to be, apparently.
That's right. Well, it's going forward, man. Some Eternal 94. I mean, no doubt we're going to see more of the Team Compton Training Centre boys back in the Eternal MMA cage. So plenty more fights for there to be able to sink your teeth into with Ladbrokes, no doubt, going forward, man. Speaking of the Team Compton Training Centre boys, before we dive into your fight, great weekend for you boys all around. Of course, you getting the win. Tom Nolan, of course, in the UFC. The aforementioned Blair Bratag there. Not butchering his name this time. Blair Bratag getting the job done in round one as he does. Good times for Team Compton Training Centre, man.
Yeah, man, going 3 from 3, so got to be happy with that. Boys, I don't know, just world-class performances from them. Particularly Blair, I don't think he even got touched. I was like, well, what the heck? That was flawless.
Yeah, he didn't have time to sort of stick around, mate. I was talking to someone else the other day about it and looking at his resume and just how many fights he's just it's so early in his career already, but knocking dudes out in the first round, left, right, and center. Dude's got heavy hands, and he looked good at light heavyweight too.
Yeah, man, he's got heavy hands. He had places to be, apparently, so he's out of there quick.
I like it. I've been silently, not silently, but a little bit on the podcast and a little bit in the comments. I've been campaigning for him to have No Time Bratag. I would like No Time Bratag as his nickname. I think he got asked on a little segment recently with Lily Hines why he doesn't have a nickname on one of the YouTube videos that was put out recently. And he said, look, it's given to you by the coaches. It's given to you by those that are supposed to give you the nickname. I want Blair No Time Bratag. I think that's very fitting. What do you think, Dave?
Man, I gotta agree with him. Nicknames kind of it's given to you. Maybe not necessarily by the coach, but
I'm giving it to him. Me, I'm important.
Oh yeah, fair enough. It sticks, bro. We'll see if it sticks. I'll start harassing him at the gym and start calling him that.
I'd appreciate that, man. Let's see if we can get something going. But no, hats off to you boys. Team Compton Training Centre, 3 for 3. Massive weekend for you guys all around with Eternal MMA and the UFC in town, of course, there as well. We just mentioned Blair, of course, looking good up at light heavyweight. Now, I did promise your lovely wife, Jane, that the weight would not be something we would discuss, but I'm talking about this in a positive fashion here because you move up to welterweight to become a 3-time Eternal MMA champion, now in the welterweight division, moving up from where you previously won your belts at lightweight. Just in general, how are you feeling, man? Obviously, it's not as big of a weight cut. This has obviously been discussed. It's been a topic. But just from, the not having to cut the weight and everything, how good did you feel? You now fought twice at welterweight. How's the body feeling? How did it feel fighting at that weight?
Yeah, well, in terms of actual, leading into the fight and everything, I don't feel any different, man. It all feels the same to me. But I guess that there's a number of other factors involved as well. I don't know. The whole process just all feels similar. Obviously, the weight cut at the end of it is pretty damn easy compared to going to lightweight. But I'm definitely noticing though, I'm getting more power going when it comes to my striking and everything. But it's hard to say if that's a result of the actual weight class or if it's the mechanics of my punching that I've been working on in the last few months. It's hard to say because they all factor in.
Well, let's talk about that. You talk about the mechanics and everything. One of the noticeably improved parts of your game over your last few fights has, of course, been your striking. We just talk about Team Compton Training Center. Of course, you're still training out of Ignite MMA and Vice and all that sort of thing as well. But, we know Team Compton Training Center and how much they're lauded for their striking acumen, and Stephen Elliott Compton down there leading the charge. Like, how vital has this stable of coaches and minds been in your corner to taking your striking to this next level? Not to mention the room full of killers that you got there with their striking pedigree. Tom Nolan, Blair Battaglia, we just mentioned, Don Marfan on the come up, John Martin Fraser's been there. This is a massive well of knowledge for you to draw from now.
Yeah, man. Well, that's the great thing about training down in Compton's is like you just walk into a room full of killers. And so when you're sparring, wrestling, and just doing all sorts of work with those boys, like you can't help but improve. And when you're just in a room full of like-minded people, like they're all there trying to improve, trying to like tinker with the things, whether it's their striking, their wrestling, or just all the little components of MMA, they're just constantly working at it. So when you're in a room full of those kind of people, man, like you each just elevate each other, which is, it's been phenomenal for me. I joke about it, like basically feeling younger when I train with them, because it's just like I get like this energy from them. It makes me enthusiastic about learning again.
Would you say it's kind of almost given you, like, I mean, you're still only 31 years of age, but like mixing it up with these guys, is it kind of like giving you sort of like almost like a new start in your career? Like, you said you're feeling younger and everything. Is it kind of like a bit of a refresh and a bit of a jolt of enthusiasm back into your fight career?
That's probably the more fitting way to put it, man. It's just like a refreshing perspective, and like I'm excited to learn. And I get there, I'm like, I'm freaking keen as, man. And training with a bunch of people, again, everyone is trying to get that little bit better. And they're constantly like sorting through different things. And so when you're in a room full with them, like you can't help but get better yourself.
No, well, it's certainly paying dividends for you, man. I mean, we look back to the end of last year, the first time you're moving up to welterweight, and you get the job done once again over Brenton Mumford in the first round, and it sets you up for this title fight against Ireland's Stephen Costello at Eternal 92. This was a great little fight, man, for as long as it lasted until you got the job done in the third round with the rear naked choke there. I mean, this fight started with a bang, mate. I mean, Stephen comes out swinging, looks like he's got places to be in his own right. Had you up against the fence at one point, looked like he had you at least wobbled. I don't know if you were hurt necessarily in those moments, but like you managed to get back at him, bit down in the mouthpiece, you threw the jab, he's bleeding from his nose, and all of a sudden you've got him up against the cage. Like if you weren't hurt in that moment, you certainly looked like you knew you were in a fight from that point. Can you just talk us through that opening sequence? Were you hurt, or what was sort of going on there? Because it started with a bang.
Oh, bro, so let me tell you, like, in the lead, everyone's like, oh, Dave, like, you look so much better at welterweight, and you're training better, you're moving around better than that. And then the opening 10 seconds, I get hit by a right hand. I'm like, nah, my boy's gaslit me here. Freaking, I know welterweight. But nah, man, like my jab came through, managed to just send him straight down the pipe, busted his nose with it, and then the rest of the fight was mine from there.
Yeah, and what was it like sort of, I mean, we just talk about you looking good at welterweight, right? And speaking to Matt Bones, who I've been doing some podcasts with and some fight breakdowns and everything, he told me when he saw you coming out, he looked at you and thought, like, that looks like a good welterweight. This is a good size welterweight. This is the weight class for Dave. And then he sees Costello come out, who looks like he should be fighting at light heavyweight, my apologies. He's a massive mountain of a man. Like, we know what your game is. We know that you like to get to the wrestling and the pressure-heavy grappling and everything, and you were trying to get to that early in the first round, and he looked like he was hard to take down because of the sheer size of the man. Like, what was sort of going through your mind as you were trying to take him down? You wouldn't have, at least in a fight, maybe in the training room you've dealt with blokes this big, but in real time in a fight, like, what's going through your mind as you're trying to take down this man that just looks like he's got such a size advantage on you?
Yeah, man, when he walked in the cage, I was like, oh, good Lord. Freaking this guy, Walter. What the hell? But no, I just stuck with the game plan that we had, man. Like, it was always going to be like weathering him down over the rounds. He was going to be tough to deal with just purely based on his size. but I just kept going after him, and then eventually he started to crumble.
Yeah, I mean, look, a lot of, the sheer size of Stephen Costello was kind of noted, and was it going to be a matter of if Dave can kind of, drag him into into the deep end, if you will, and kind of gas him out a little bit, that it would pay dividends for you, and it certainly did, because you go ahead and get yourself the finish there, and you look damn good doing it too, man. Like, you look as good as you ever sort of looked in the fight. Like, if we look sort of ahead to the fight in sort of the second round too, there was I think it was either the first round or the second round, you gave us a nice little David Martinez moment. I don't think there's too many fights we've had where we haven't had a nice gesture from you after the fight in your post-fight speech, or a nice David Martinez moment, in some of the podcasts we've done. The man drops his mouthpiece on the ground, and you pick it up and hand it to him with a little round of applause. Now, I don't know if you're doing this because you're genuinely a good bloke, even though I know you are, but maybe you're trying to lull these guys into some sort of false sense of security, thinking you're not as much of a savage in the cage as you were. But that was a nice moment, man. I like that.
Yeah, no, I just saw it fall on the ground. I'm like, oh, bro, you need
You drop this, yeah. I'm going to punch you in the head. You're going to need this when I do that.
Nah, man, like, freaking, again, like, I always say, but the price of dental care, man, is expensive, brother. And we're like, the last thing you need is your teeth chipped or anything just because you didn't have your mouth guard in. And like, we're in a fight, we're basically getting into a car crash with each other. So like, I'm perfectly willing to cut you and freaking and try and give you a black eye or something, but like chipped teeth, I'm like, nah, not for me.
A man of the people is David Martinez, always thinking about his opponents just as much as he is himself. So hats off to you, man. It was a fun moment in what was a fantastic performance from yourself as well. I mean, speaking of the performance, man, I mean, not only do we get that little feel-good moment, but so many just great elements to this fight. I mean, there was that point in the second round too where you caught him with that nice left, stumbled him, looked like he was doing cartwheels in the center of the cage there, and you give us a bit of a Max Holloway moment, pointed to the cage and said, let's go, man. Like, let's go for this. Like, you look like you were having fun in there at that moment, man. Like, talk us through that, because you look like you're enjoying yourself.
Oh, man, I was probably caught up in the moment. I was like, oh, this is great. I did the step through, caught him with the left hook, and he almost did like a cartwheel off to the side. And I'm like, oh, heck yeah, I'm on a roll here.
I like it, man. No, it was, you certainly gave us a lot of good moments in there, man, too. It was classic David Martinez style, relentless pressure. You got him to kind of wilt as sort of the fight went on, and that sort of size factor with him and that advantage that he might have had early on, with the power and the size, like you just more than nullified with, your game plan and what you bring and what you do every single time inside that cage, man. So absolutely hats off to you. You get the job done with the rear naked choke in the third round. Talk us sort of through that moment. Were you kind of sensing the end was near? You got that nice takedown in the third round, and then we know where it goes from there with David Martinez. Once you get on the ground, there's not too many people sort of getting up there. Talk us through that rear naked choke. You were pretty confident in that moment that it was all over.
Yeah, man. Well, I managed to get his back, I think, in the second round, but I was like, he's defending too well here.
Still kicking, yeah.
Yeah, and then the positioning was a bit off as well. So I was like, this is going to turn into a scramble eventually. I better get ready for it. But no, in the third round, when I got him down, took his back in the sequence, I was like, yeah, this feels pretty close. I still had to fish for it a bit. Yeah, I managed to swap my arms over, but once you get it like locked in and you can feel it under the chin and everything, you're like, I've got this. Freaking squeeze with everything.
I like it, man. So you get announced as a three-time Eternal MMA champion, like we said. Now up at welterweight, of course, you're a two-time champion at lightweight, man. I mean, in that moment, after the fight's all sort of said and done, when you sort of think back, like we talked now long ago. I mean, you've only been a pro since what was it, 2018? I think it was. Was it even like that far? Yeah, 2018. So it's only been 6 or 7 short years, man, up until this point. It's crazy to think. You come all this way and you're a three-time Eternal MMA champion. Like, you kind of have a bit of a period of reflection in those moments and think man, where is that time gone? And have you ever sort of thought to yourself man, I'm going to be a three-time Eternal MMA champion? Have you kind of met the expectations in terms of where you'd think you'd be and what you've achieved? Like, where are you sort of sitting in terms of how you view your career to this point?
To be honest, man, I haven't had time to reflect on it. I got the belt, friggin' Jane took it off me. Friggin', I don't know where it is now. And All I've done is gone back to the gym getting bashed by my boys.
Straight back to the grind, man. Straight back to the grind.
Fine, man. So I'm back down in Compton's, just copping it on the daily.
Oh, nice. No rest for the wicked, mate.
Not at all, man. Like, wicked or freaking good, evil, anything. Like, you just cop it.
How soon were you back in the gym? Were you pretty much there? Just like, well, this is obviously on the weekend. Were you back in there first thing next week from the week after?
Straight away, bro. Like, my Monday rolls around. I've lifted my weights, gone to see Doyle and just work out with the boys up at Vice. Then as soon as I can, I'm back down at Compton's in the morning, and I enjoy it, man. I freaking love it. So I just want to continue on with that.
Did you come out of the fight feeling reasonably healthy? Obviously, you caught a couple of sort of shots here and there, but overall, you obviously dominated the large part of the fight. Nothing too serious coming out of that fight, from what I can tell.
Well, I managed to come out like massively unscathed, considering it was almost 3 rounds. I was like, okay, you know what? I'll take it. Some of my fights have not ended too well for me, but this one was, I don't know, picture perfect almost.
One of the talking points after the fight, I'm sure you've seen this, and you might even talk to your opponent, Stephen Costello. He shared that coming into this one, that he was dealing with a sickness, that he was dealing with a viral chest infection. I'd seen some of the nasty images that he'd shown on the way back, that he had some medication prescribed for and coughing up some pretty gnarly looking phlegm. He was pretty sort of vocal on social media, calling for the rematch, saying that he was talking to Eternal about wanting the rematch. And look, I've obviously spoken to Stephen on the podcast and everything, all the time in the world for Stephen Costello, like absolutely top bloke. Wish him nothing but the best in his career going forward. If we can get him back here to fight for Eternal MMA again, I'd love to have Stephen Costello back here, because obviously he went through his own funny little period with first coming over to try to fight Elton Bates, who missed weight horrifically, had to go all the way back and then come back to try and get that second shot at the belt, which he did, and then kind of feels like he didn't get to serve himself to the best of his abilities because of the sickness. But, I mean, look, this is the fight game. It's very rare that any of you guys come in with a full bill of health. So just keen to get your thoughts on that. Did you talk to him after the fight, and sort of what were your thoughts on him sort of talking about how that affected him in the fight?
Yeah, man. Well, it's unfortunate when you get sick, particularly around the time of the fight, man. Like, we all have to deal with it from time to time. I've had almost like over 30 fights at this point. I've fought a few of them sick as well. It does suck, but that's the hand you dealt on the day, unfortunately. As for Stephen himself, yeah, he's freaking awesome, man. I spoke to him briefly the day before weigh-ins and then again after the fight, and like he seems like a pretty cool dude. So yeah, and as for like calling for a rematch or anything, whatever I'm doing next is completely in Eternal's hands. It seems whoever they want to go with, they'll put the name forward, and I'll be like, oh yeah, let's go.
No, that's true, David Martinez. I mean, you talk about everything being in Eternal's hands, and fair enough too, man. But I mean, look, you've never been a guy that's really kind of called your shot for anything. You know what I mean? You've always said like, and by design, you like to just take one fight at a time, like not sort of get too far ahead of yourself. But we're kind of at this point in your career, man, where you've got a damn impressive resume put together for yourself. 15-6 fight record now, 15 wins for just the 6 defeats, on a 4-fight winning streak now. 3-time Eternal MMA champion. You're looking sharper than ever. You looked incredible in the cage. Of course, you fought in front of Hunter Campbell, who was there to obviously check out the fights and that sort of thing as well. I know you don't like to speculate too much on what kind of comes in the future of your career, but don't you think it's time that you can start calling the shots? Like, it's everyone's calling their shots. I want to be here. I want to be there. Like, look at what you're doing, man, and look at what you've achieved. Like, don't you feel like you deserve to be kind of the guy that puts his hand up and say, hey, it's time for me to get my shine now?
Look, man, like my job is just to go, like, get back to training, turn up to the gym, freaking keep working on my craft. That's my job, man. The rest is in like, hey, I've got my boys. I've got Elliot Compton commanding the ship and for my management type thing. That's in his hands, brother. It's none of my concern. And I just turn up at the gym and I just do what I'm told. Freaking just keep working away, keep grinding away. That's my job.
No, I certainly appreciate that, man. And I mean, when we've talked about this sort of stuff in the past, it's always been largely the response. So I can certainly see why you'd like to keep it that way. You let your fighting do the talking in the cage, and that certainly speaks for itself, man. You've given us an incredible run up until this point. Definitely one of the better champions we've had for Eternal MMA. Obviously, you say you let your management take care of things, you let Eternal take care of things. Do you give much thought in terms of maybe what comes next, like what 2025 looks like? Do you have goals specifically in mind of anything you'd like to achieve? What does your mind tell you what this year might look like for you?
Man, I don't know. I just walk around the house thinking about these big. I come up with these big grand plans, and then Jane just tells me to shut the F up, and I'm like, oh, look out. Brings me back down to earth. So, nah, man. There are things that sound nice, man, but life seems to rarely work out how you'd either want it to, or even when it does work out the way you want it to, it turns out that's not what you wanted anyway. It ends up totally different. So I give up on worrying about that sort of stuff, man. I'm just focused on, again, getting to the gym, developing my craft, and just enjoying myself with it.
I don't think you can go wrong with that mindset, man. Thank you very much for coming back on the show here, brother. And obviously we spoke off camera. I will confess to the public that I did mess up a time slot for David Martinez the other night. Somehow getting that backwards, thinking it was Tuesday night, and we had it scheduled for Wednesday night. Thank you to yourself and Jane for allowing us to reschedule here. I've never done it before in my life, mess up this bad as far as the time slot goes. If there was any man I wouldn't want to leave at the altar, it's David the Smiling Assassin Martinez. And here I was leaving him there without a dance partner on the podcast. So once again, man, my pleasure to have you on here. I always love talking to you. Whatever comes next in your career, whether it's defending that belt again, whether we see you in Eternal MMA again, whether there's future opportunities somewhere else, whatever it is, sign me up, because I always love seeing a David Martinez fight. I always love having you here on the podcast, man. So thank you very much for being here once again, and we'll talk to you soon.
Man, it's always a pleasure, brother. Thank you for having the time for me tonight, man. I always enjoy myself, again, a chat with you.
I appreciate it, brother. Thank you.
Oh, my! That was huge.